So if you play blues, you probably know about using pentatonic scales when you want to start improvising. But if you've been working with pentatonic scales and you're frustrated by the way that it sounds and the results you're getting, in this lesson I want to show you 3 things you can start doing right away to start making those pentatonic scales sound good. If you're a fingerstyle blues guitar player and you'd like more of an ongoing, organized way to learn tunes, to turn those tunes into complete songs, and to start improvising, I encourage you to check out my membership, the Fingerstyle 5, at the link below or the link on screen. So the first idea is pretty counterintuitive, and it's this. Don't worry about learning the pentatonic scale in every position all over the neck. Just worry about playing the pentatonic scale in open position. This is particularly true if you're playing fingerstyle blues, but even if you're playing electric blues, there is so much music to be had in open position, and it all sounds really great. But what you want to do is get familiar with the scale right down here at the nut. So if you're playing in the key of E, start with the root. Where's the root? We got one here, and we got one here. And the next thing is just to think, well, it's the pentatonic scale, right? That means there's only 5 notes. That's what pentatonic means. So let's find just a couple of notes. If you go down from the root, you go down to the flat 7 and then the 5th. And if you go up from the root, you go from the root up to the flat 3rd and then the 4th. Now there's all 5 notes of the pentatonic scale in one little compact place. And no note is more than a step or 2 away from the root. And it's always easier to find the root than anything else because that's the name of the chord you're on, that's the name of the scale you're playing. And when you do want to start going up the neck, instead of memorizing one of these like strings of notes all the way up the neck in 2 octaves in all these positions, as long as you know that there's the root and you know how to find the flat 7 and the 5th below it, and the flat 3rd and the 4th above it, that is totally portable. As soon as you can find a root somewhere else on the neck, you can then use that information to find the rest of the pentatonic scale anywhere on the neck you want without memorizing those 5 positions. You just need to know musically what's going on, which is that you've got the root and these notes around the root. You don't even really need to know the names of the notes, the letter names, as long as you understand the intervals, that the 7th is flat 7 is a whole step below the root, and that the 5th has this kind of relationship to the root, and that you're going up a total of 3 frets to get to the flat 3rd, and then 2 more frets to get to the 4th. And finally, that means that any lick that you learn in open position is also going to be portable. So start in open position, know those 5 notes in terms of the root and the notes around the root, and you'll be able to go wherever you want to on the neck once you've gotten it all dialed in down here. So if you go to the high string, which is also the note E, also the root, you can also find the flat 3rd and the 4th going up, and you can find the flat 7 and the 5th going down. So now, if we'd started from here, we'd have all that, but now it's organized in a more musical way around the root and the different notes you can play in relation to the root. So that is the first idea. The second idea comes directly out of that, which is play licks that land on the root. So there it is. Instead of thinking about, well, I know I have this collection of however many notes in this position, think in terms of I have the root, I have these notes that take me away from the root, and then I can come back to the root. So here's the 5th. And again, that lick is portable because if you're thinking in terms of the relationships between the notes, once you can find a root in another location, you can play the same lick in both locations. So you don't necessarily have to land on the root. You can also land on another chord tone. And that means first, well, the root, the notes of the chord are the root and the 3rd and the 5th. And so the 5th is another good landing spot. You might Might also land on the flat 7. But start with roots and then experiment with landing on other chord tones. Now that's obviously just for the E. And so sort of another aspect of, or a secondary thing about this second rule of landing on a chord tone is if you're going to a new chord, you can land on the root of that chord you're going to. So if you're going from E to A, that A note is still inside the pentatonic scale, the E pentatonic scale, but you can make that E pentatonic scale work over the 4 chord over A by landing on a chord tone of A. And then when you're on your way back to E, so very simple ideas can work over more than one chord. There's one lick that lands on the root. Now it lands on the A. We could even land on the root of B. Now, yeah, I did basically just play the exact same lick 4 times in a row. And you may be thinking, well, that's boring to play the same thing over and over, but not if you resolve it to each chord you land on. It actually starts to sound musical. You don't have to play a different lick every time you play a lick. You can use repetition to your advantage and get a lot of very musical results out of playing similar phrases, but landing them differently. And it really makes it sound more musical, more like a melody, and more like you're putting all the notes where you want to on purpose to get a specific, satisfying result. Now, the third idea is implied by the second idea, because if we're going to play phrases that land on a root or on some other chord tone, then we got to be playing phrases in the first place in order to do that. So what a phrase is can be a little vague and fuzzy, but for now, let's just define it as a lick that comes to a landing or a resting point at the beginning of a bar. So on the downbeat of 1, which means if you're kicking off a tune and it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, then you're going to start playing during that count off. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And if you're in the middle of the tune and you're already grooving with the thumb, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 3, 4, 1. So there are obviously many kinds of phrases, but a lot of them do have that sense of arrival, of landing when you get to the beginning of the next measure. And so you can use that for now, that specific kind of and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 phrasing as a kind of rhythmic container. And so combined with the other 2 rules of stay in open position with notes around the root and have your phrases land on the root, and then with this third idea of playing the specific phrasing that brings you into the beginning of the next measure with and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 for the rhythm. Now when you go to use pentatonic scales, you don't have to play memorized licks. You also don't have to just kind of randomly apply the notes of the scale where no one note is any more important than any other note. Now there's a bit of a hierarchy, in a sense, of direction, both rhythmically and in terms of what notes you pick, so that you can improvise around with the scale, but knowing that you're playing the specific rhythmic shape and knowing that you're always trying to come to these specific landing points like roots and other chord tones. So if you just start off in E, playing that kind of phrasing, you can create a lot of little variations. And then, if you do want to start playing more than just a vamp on E, you can start to think about, well, if I'm switching between E and A, like I would on a blues, if I'm on my way to an A chord, I can make sure that I play a pentatonic lick, still an E minor pentatonic scale lick, but make sure that I land on a chord tone of A. So if I start off with, if I know I'm on my way to A, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. When I get to the next measure, where the A starts in the bass, I'm going to land on the root, say, of the A chord. And then back to E. I could even land, if I'm going up to B, with a B on top. And then going back to E. So with just a few simple elements, you can actually start to make some real music. And without sort of wondering entirely what to play, you can start to experiment with these 3 simple rules and start to see what kind of music you can make, and then begin to vary maybe where you are on the neck, maybe vary what chord tone you're landing on, maybe start to vary the kind of phrasing itself. But these 3 rules will get you up and running so that instead of just feeling like you're randomly playing through the scale with no direction, you're now starting to play real phrases that really land, that really sound musical, and that start to have some kind of musical story to tell with the places that you're landing and the way you're connecting everything together. So that's one set of ideas for getting more musical and more fluent when it comes to improvising with the pentatonic scale. If you've got questions or comments, leave them down below. I would love to hear from you. And again, if you're a fingerstyle guitar player in search of better, more organized, ongoing lessons to learn how to play tunes, turn tunes into complete songs, and start improvising, check out my Fingerstyle 5 membership at the link below or the link on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.